Do that. All right. Here we go. We're back here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. So humbled that you would join us again, man. Again, it's just amazing. 52 episodes a year, every Monday. Coaches from all walks of life: high school, middle school, NCAA D1, D2, NAI, JUCO, of course, and just having fun with the men and women that choose to be track coaches, learning their journeys and uplifting and honoring what they do with our young people out there in this great sport. And this is going to be another one. I'm really excited. I coached a couple years in high school, but my majority of my coaching was in the college. But I have a real fun time with our high school coaches because they're at the real ground floor. And I know we got middle school and club coaches, and that's in the same vein there. But our high school coaches, not only because of the ages of these coaches' kids, right, the 14 to 18-year-olds, but they're teachers. They're working from, I'm going to say 8 to 3, but I know it starts way before 8. But they're teaching classes, their homework. They probably have faculty and staff responsibilities. There's other duties as a sign thing, and they're going through so much, and things are changing rapidly every day with the teaching profession. And so to do that, and then on top of that, have an expectation to be, hey, a really good track and field, a really good cross country coach. I just have a real big place in my heart for them. So I'm excited to talk today. Help me welcome from Glenwood High School, right here in the great state of Illinois, the head coach there, the wise, the wonderful Mr. Mike Garber. Mike, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. And by the way, thanks for having the first name of Mike. That always makes having to remember who I'm talking to much easier when I can
There's a
feel
lot
like
of
I'm
us
just
out
talking
there.
to myself. Yeah. There is. I'm glad you said that. When I meet someone with a cool first name, I'm always like, dude, that's so cool. There's too many Mikes and Steves and Tims. There's enough of those guys to have cool name. I appreciate cool names, but you know what? If you're not gonna have a cool name, you better be a cool person. And I know that's for a fact. That's you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Hey, congratulations to Gil for being the IHSA sponsor.
Yeah.
That's very cool for you guys.
Dude, you're better than I should have said that. Thank you. That's right. We are excited. We have, we were the sponsors for a long time and let it slip for various reasons. And it's always been a meet we have been coveted, right? We're here in Illinois. We were born here in Illinois, right here out of the University of Illinois, right here in Champaign and Urbana, Illinois. And, to have that state meet and have, we've got, I say kids, I'm of that age, Mike. We've got guys and gals that work here that competed at that meet,
Yep.
and it's like, man, that should be Gill equipment. And so we have
I agree.
worked really hard and we're excited. Max Schweitzer, one of our new guys who competed at that meet and coached kids at that meet,
Mhm.
is going to be our heads up guy there because it's right at the same time of NCAA's.
Yep.
So it was no small decision to do it, Mike, because NCAA's is so many meets, but it's important to us, and so we're excited. So thanks for bringing that up, man. I appreciate
I
that.
saw that at
Thank
the
you.
beginning of the year. I saw the email and I was like, Gil Athletics. I was
Yeah.
super excited for you guys.
Man, you're a better commercial man than I am. I love that. Thank you for that. I need all the help I can get, so I appreciate that very much. Mike, hey, real quick, I wanted to bring up kind of two things, something that we talked about just real quick. One is that what I talked about there in my introduction. My wife is a long-term sub, so she's not a full-time teacher, but she's the call it next rung down, a long-term sub, right? So she'll do months, when teachers go out on maternity leave or surgeries and things like that. And so I've gotten a much greater insight into teaching than I have in the past. I've had teachers and my kids have had teachers, but this is, it's a different level when my wife is teaching geometry and, I see her doing homework when she gets home and all that kind of stuff. Kind of give us the 30,000 foot level for those of us who don't know what's going in on a daily basis, educationally for teachers. Kind of put your teacher hat on, not your coach hat. How are things going for teachers right now at the end of 2025?
I think we're in a good spot. What's really fun now in comparison, so I've been at Glenwood High School. This is my 19th year at Glenwood. I've been in education for
Wow.
21 years. Um, to see the advancements in technology, our school has been a really good, I think, leader in the area on a lot of the technological side of things. So when there's a new thing that we can implement into a classroom, and it's not just projector screens or whiteboards or
Mhm.
anything like that anymore. They implemented some touchscreen technology this year. They put new large screen TVs in the classrooms that connect to our desktop, and it allows for a little bit more interaction. Kids can log into it, and then we can have even more interaction from kids in the class. I think what's been very unique and very fun is the integration of those kinds of things because kids are in technology every day, and there's a lot of
Right.
times when they know more than the adults do.
Mhm.
So it's really cool to see a district that cares about that side of it. We have great tech people at our school. anytime you have a problem, they are quick to be there for the people who need it. Obviously, some people have a little bit level of comfort that's different than other people when it comes to how things were run in a classroom. But I think that's what's really changed. I remember when I started, early 2000s was whenever I was doing student teaching. I went to Southeast Missouri State University,
Yeah.
and they got us in the classroom as sophomores, which I think was great. I know there
Mhm.
have been times when it's like, well, it's my senior year, I'm going to go do my student teaching. Getting that taste whenever I was 19 or 20 years old, I might not have looked a whole lot older than some of the people there, maybe not acted a whole lot older than some of the people there, but that was one of those things like, do I really want to do this? And that gets you the feel for it. And I
Yeah.
remember being at a couple schools in Southeast Missouri, and they were using opaque projectors and projecting it on the wall, and they were writing on the opaque projector with dry erase marker to try to, and lights are off and kids are half awake, and it's just
Yeah.
those are that day from now when I can be like, hey, we're talking about some world event because I teach current events as one of my classes. So I can bring up Google Maps and we can zoom in on the area and we can zoom out and look at borders and changes through time. That's been so much fun because where the kids
Yeah.
are with technology, you need to be able to meet them there. And I think that
Mhm.
we are equipped much better today than we have been in previous years,
Yeah.
to be able to use that.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I love that you got that taste as a sophomore. I kind of, we've talked about this before in different avenues. It boggles me that in today's world, and it's been going on for a long time, that we make 18-year-olds choose majors that are going to affect the rest of their life when they're 18. They don't know anything. They don't know who they want to take to the dance next season. Why in the world are we making them pick their careers, right? And so, like, I've always, my son's a freshman in high school, so he's got a couple years. But I was like, man, I was telling my wife, literally, we were just having this discussion, and I was like, if Troy, my son's name's Troy, uh, decides, after a senior year that he wants to go, he's really big bass fisherman, things like that, and nature and
Mhm.
like Department of Natural Resources. That's kind of where I maybe see him going. I was like, if he told me after he graduated high school that he wanted to go intern or get a entry level job at a park or want to do this before he went to college, I'd be like, yeah, that's smart. You
Yeah.
don't you think you know what the job when you and we're going to learn this when you first started thinking about becoming a teacher, you thought you knew the job because it was right in front of you. You had a teacher and you're like, that's pretty cool, I'd like to do that. But until you're in it, you
Right.
don't know. So to be able to get in it early and I love that you got in it early and still made the decision to go with it. But if you can get in early and decide, ooh, this is not, I don't see, I can't do this for 20, 30 years. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Do that when you're 19, 20, not when you're 30 and 40 and you've got
Totally.
family and all this. And it's like, well, you make a decision to get out of your career today, buddy. That's a big deal. So I
Yeah.
love that. I wish there was more of um, like a year or two, go intern, go play around, do what's the old school, back in our day, we'd say go backpacking year, go do that stuff and
Right.
and
Yeah.
then go to school. And I think
Take
we'd
the
have
gap
less,
years they have now.
yeah, gap year. Yeah. I think that we'd have less student loans, less dropout, less depression. I just think that'd be so much better. So I love that you had that early. So well, let's get into it. Let's learn more about your journey, Mike. Somewhere, assuming, and we certainly know you don't have to be an athlete to be a coach and even a great coach, but assuming you were a track athlete, where in the world does track start for you?
So I'm at my alma mater. I grew up in Chatham. I was one of the
Oh,
guys that said I was never coming back, and then you get some experience, and then you realize it's a good place to raise a family, and to teach. So
love that.
grew up around here. The group of friends that I was with, we did a lot of things together. It was sports, whether that was soccer or running or basketball or whatever. We were all in Boy Scouts together, so we did the Boy Scout thing together.
Mhm.
Um, we were running and gunning as kids, and in this area running was one of the larger sports. Like football kind of had some success in the late 90s. Basketball has had some success. If you know anything about Chatham, Glenwood baseball, anybody with the name Detmers or Maton, guys like that have left Glenwood High School. Jason Worth is a Glenwood grad. And so
Hmm.
there's people that have left this area and gone to do some pretty amazing things in baseball, but we've had the same thing with running, as far as the quality and the quantity of athletes. We were always, typically in contention, especially at the middle school level, for state championships. Whenever I started running, I didn't actually start out in distance. I was a sprint, hurdles, jumps guy. I think, you get on a track team, there's 200 kids that come out for Glenwood High School track. It's a lot of kids that are there. I don't envy the middle school coaches. I know them very well. I don't envy them. Uh, you get of those 200, 150 of them think that they're sprinters or some sort of, jump thing. and only about 40 or 50 of them will go out for distance. There's still a lot, but it's not as many as you would expect.
Right.
My first 2 years, that was me, and then my eighth grade year, that group of guys I ran around with, we just kind of said, I was like, I want to keep doing what they were doing, so did cross country. I wasn't a whole lot of good. My dad actually went to high school in Ohio, Lincoln High School in Ohio. He ran with Dave Waddle,
Oh,
baseball
wow.
meter gold
Yeah, of
medalist.
course. Yeah, of
They were on the
course.
same 4x4 back in high school. I know they knew each other, so he would tell me stories about this
Oh,
stuff.
he ran with Watt,
Yeah,
like
him and Dave were on
not
the
like,
same.
wow.
Yeah, I'd never
That's
met him. I've heard
cool.
plenty of stories about him, but we were in different places and at
Sure.
different times. But growing up, you hear these stories, and this is before YouTube and the internet. Like really, whenever I was growing up, so I didn't get to see all the stuff. And now during track season, near the postseason, every time you see, you don't have to be in first; you can come from last, as Dave Waddle did. And so you get this like motivational music as Dave's charging down the home stretch and out leans it for the gold. Like that was my experience growing up, was hearing my dad talk about the workouts they did and stuff. So that was super cool. And yeah, I wasn't super good my freshman year either, coming up into high school, but I started figuring out it went from being something that I had to do to something that I get to do.
Mm.
And that changed, that flip switch in my brain. And I started to be a varsity athlete in both cross country and track my sophomore year and just kind of moved through high school that way. But I was still like, I was a kid who wanted to do everything.
What,
I knew I was
what,
going to be like coming into high school, it was going to be soccer or it was going to be cross because they're the same season.
right.
Um, and I thought I want to be able to do every time there's a meet, I want to be able to run, or in a game, I want to play every minute because that's just my personality.
Mhm.
And I knew I was going to get to run every meet, but I wouldn't get to play every game. So I went instead to the cross country side of things, and it was the best decision I ever made.
What I want to double click on what you said there. I think, mindset is tremendous, right? Like I think about my mindset towards like social media when people talk about, it's a cancer and it's dark, and so I'm going to leave Twitter or whatever, all this kind of stuff. And I don't know where it came from. So hopefully you can think about where I'm about to ask you where it came from. But for me, I've always been like when someone good says I'm leaving Twitter, I'm like, oh, please don't. Like you don't make dark better by taking away the light. You do more light. Like keep doing the things you're doing. So mindset to me is really important. And you said that things changed for you when it went from I have to do track, or I'm gonna go, I gotta go do track, to oh, I get to, like, I mean, that's just, my hands even do like this, like it's a
Yep.
180, right? Do you remember, and sometimes it's not always an acute, like, oh, I PR'd, or oh man, I had a great workout. Sometimes it's more chronic, like, oh, my relationship with my coaches became better, and that's was like, oh wow, I'd like to spend more time with them, I get to go do this. do,
Yeah.
do you remember how that mindset flipped? Because I think that's super important. And I guarantee you've seen this in your kids too. Kids that show up to practice because, yeah, I got to go to the track, versus kids who are like, oh man, I get to be here today. This is amazing, right? Where did that flip for you?
So I had really great coaches. In fact, and I've said this a lot. One of the guys that's going to come talk to my team today, because I think they get tired of hearing me talk sometimes. Um, his name is Mike Johnson, and he was my coach whenever I was growing up. And
Oh, wow.
we had great middle school coaches, but and when I was in high school, it was Mike Johnson and Jeff Reed. Jeff Reed ran at Michigan. Mike Johnson had been the coach in the area for a long time, and he was at Petersburg Porta for a while and coached over there. And there's just a lot of little things that he did, and the way that he spoke, and the way he made me feel as an athlete, that was like it was it was a completely different experience than any time I've ever had with another coach. And it was those moments where I started going, I think I want to do what he's doing. I think I want to be like him. I think I want to make people feel the way he makes me feel. And Mike and Jeff were both these guys that just they took it to another level. And that was the switch. It was the people that I got to be around, and the people that I was competing with were my friends. And now you add a completely different layer of desire on top of it. You want to make them proud. You want them, and he's one of those guys that said it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you are. He's going to be proud of you no matter what, because that's just his personality. He was inducted into the Illinois Coaches Hall of Fame. And every time I see him, I still call him Coach. He's not Mike Johnson. He will never be Mr. Johnson. He is Coach. And to me, somebody who I get to call Coach still at 43 years old, I'm never going to stop caring about him, about his family, his kids, his grandkids
Yeah.
are all runners around the area. His grandkids are now competing against my teams that I'm coaching, and I'm still going to be out there cheering his grandkids on. because I care about that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here because of you. And because of that, there is no higher honor that I could ever give than to try to motivate your grandkids to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
What do you remember? Because it's amazing to me. It's a lot like coaching that, if you have one philosophy of coaching, even if it's the air quotes correct philosophy, and we definitely don't get into necessarily the X's and O's of the right philosophies or what people think are the right philosophies, but even if whatever you're coaching is the right philosophy, scientifically, etc., there are still, when you talk about 100 kids in front of you or even 50 kids in front of you, those are 50 individual kids. And so whatever style you have, it absolutely is the right style for maybe 25% of them, but 75% need the complete opposite style or a variant, etc.
Yeah.
What do you remember when you think about Coach, about his style? Like, and maybe there's a story like, oh, I dropped out of the mile race and that was the worst day of my life, and he still put his arm around me and said, hey, we're going to get him next. I don't want to taint your story, but do you remember a story like what about what I'm trying to get at is what about his style is so memorable? Because remember, people love Bobby Knight.
Right.
Okay, and I'm assuming Coach was not a Bobby Knight style, but
He's
he threw
not
things.
Chuck and Jerry.
He allegedly strangled people at practice, and
Right.
there are people today that you would go ask and say, "Oh, Bobby Knight, I will cheer for his." I mean, everything you just said, I would cheer for his grandchildren. I will
Yeah.
be at his memorial, whatever. And that, it's weird to me, right? Because I'd be like, oh God, I would never like that guy, right? But
Right.
it was for someone. What do you remember about Coach, style, maybe a story, just something that when you talk about like, oh man, that guy cared for me, how did he express that?
There were so many, again, there's so many layers to what his personality was as a coach. And reflecting back on it, like, I could never be who he was. And I sometimes imitate his mannerisms, sometimes unconsciously, and I only recognize it when I'm talking to him. Like, we'll
Interesting.
shake hands and we'll talk about stuff. And the way he says certain things, I have found myself saying things the way that he says them because it's I guess the way to say it is he was always positive. He was
Mm.
relentlessly positive
Ooh.
about certain things, even when there was not stuff to be positive about. I mean, I remember hearing him yell maybe two times. And one of the times, and I vividly remember the time when he wasn't so sincere with the way he spoke, is because we were not appropriately doing a warm up. We were at a park, we were goofing off, we were running too slow, we were just being, as he would call us, squirrels, because we would, high school boys, goofing and poking and being stupid. And we were not running appropriately. And one guy on the team, he was either a junior or senior at the time, was running it right. And the rest of us were 100 yards behind and just goofing off. And I remember him, he laid into us as we ran by. And it was like, whoa, coach is serious. Like, he never talks that way. And again, I can maybe remember two instances it was like that, but I remember that because all of the rest of the time you come to practice and he's so happy to see you. It's the
Mm.
energy that he brings. And as a coach, I've got two kids, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, or she's 10 now, a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. It is hard with school and family and work stuff and friendship groups and all the little things, and then you're dealing with the kids, and then the kids have their own little dramas, and then there's the preparing for workouts, and did I do this right, and then the research. Like, there's so many things you have to think about. To come to practice every day and be relentlessly positive is hard because you have to show up with that energy, and a lot of the times the kids feed off of the energy that you bring. And
Right.
he was making jokes. He would have these little, like, hey hop double pop, like he would say stuff like that. And it's just like these Coach Johnson isms. We made a shirt that had his top 10 sayings whenever we graduated. So it was a shirt that was like, said Coach Mike Johnson on the front, and in the back it was these sayings. I had it hanging up in my dorm room
That's
when I was in
cool.
college. And it was like, but you could always count on it. And you were always waiting for, when's he going to slip this one in? When's he going to say that one? And that was like always the joke. And it was every single day was like that. And I just thought, like, if I could ever be a 1% of what he was,
Yeah.
if I could affect one person in my entire career the way he affected everybody who was around him, I would have done something special if I
Yeah.
could just do a small percentage of what he did. But it was the relentless positivity. It was the way he interacted. It was the way you could tell he cared, the way he spoke to you. And it wasn't just me, it was everybody. It did not matter
Yeah.
how fast you are. It didn't matter how many years of experience you had. Like, he was just that guy. And I tell the kids, and I'm going to say it today before we get started. I'm going to say, the reason I'm here is because of this man. And you
Mm.
need to listen to what he has to say. And I'm not kidding. Every time I introduce him, no matter who I'm talking to, I will tell them that, because my journey being a teacher and a coach and doing any of the success that we have had on the coaches that I've or the teams that I've coached, start with him.
I love like you said it several times, but I've replayed it in my head 100 times as you were talking there. I love that phrase, relentlessly positive. You knew I would love that, Mike, by the way. Does that come from him? Where does that come from?
It's just like it's just true. It's just this. It's his
Yeah,
personality. It's his nature.
but,
Um,
but but I'm saying that phrase, relentlessly positive. Is that something? Is that a phrase he would say, or is that something you picked up
it's just something I
somewhere?
picked up.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
yeah,
cool. I
just
love
a
that.
it's that's a meism. That's not a Coach
Yeah,
Johnson.
I
I don't
love
know if
it.
he's ever said it, but I think that's something that I mean, it's just who he is, and it's not
Yeah,
him as a coach. It's them. If I see him out at dinner, he's at the pool that my dad belongs to, and I'll see him over summer. And he always, it's not like he's just kind of interested, like he feels the need to say something and to talk to you, like just because he knows you. He is genuinely interested in what you're doing, what you've been doing, how you are doing as a person. It's never superficial. He always, you can tell when somebody cares, and he always cares.
that's cool.
That's so awesome to have somebody in your life that can do that. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just that guy.
That's the kind not having met Coach Johnson, that's the kind of guy from your description. I'm like, oh man, I wish all kids, regardless of sport, regardless if they do a sport, like that's the kind of leaders, the kind of adult mentors, people that our young people need more of that would
Yeah,
help us become an even better society out there. So I'd love hearing about people like that. And obviously the impact that he made on you. And how cool it is it that you get to bring him back to speak to your
I love it.
athletes, dude. That's
And
so
he's always
awesome.
excited to do it. He's never like, oh, do I
Sure.
have to? He has offered in previous seasons, hey, if you want me to come out to speak, I know I did it last year. I don't know if you want me again. I'm
Yeah.
like, of course. Our schedules didn't line up last year, but every year that I can get him out to talk to the kids, just
Yeah.
so they can hear what I got to hear every day. And it may not mean as much to them. It's never going to mean as much to the kids as as him being your coach.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was, yeah, I think every time he comes out, I am re-energized, I'm
Yeah.
reinvigorated because I want to be like that. And it's a reminder, like, remember who you are.
Yeah, and and the kids learning more about you too, because whether it's him or other people you might invite, who you invite is a kind of a stamp on you. They always look, all right, Coach brought this guy along, and if Coach Johnson brings that kind of relentless positivity, it's a marker on you. They go, oh man, I always thought Coach Garber was on my butt about stuff, and now I see it's at this guy was talking about out of love. This is where it's at. That's really cool. I love that. So as you went through high school and your mind switch, which is so important for our young people, for you guys and gals that are listening right now that are coaches. There's some of us that go to practice because I gotta go to
Yeah.
practice. That mindset switch of I get to teach math, I get to coach track, I get to coach cross country. That is a I've been working hard for the past couple of years of, hey, I'll ask my wife, hey, what do we got on Sunday? And I'll say, well, I know we got to go to church. And it's like, oh, no, no. First of all, I don't gotta go.
Right.
Second, but I get to go. So like it's something I've been thinking about in other aspects, like specific aspects of my life. So I just love that. I think that's really important. So
And
as
we
you
do that at
went,
home too, because we say things like, oh, I can't wait to the end of this week, or man, it's Friday. Like everybody has those kind of conversations. And one
yeah,
of the things that we have tried to be very aware of is like how we talk because the kids are listening. And so if all you're
yeah,
saying is, and I'm talking like my own actual children, if we're
hmm
always looking for the future and we're not living in these moments, I think we are missing some of the very
yeah,
important things. And I'm a Christian, and I have a lot of we deal with FCA and a lot of coaches Bible study that we've been doing recently, and for me, that's so
hmm
important for my own growth as a coach
right,
and as a person. And it has tried to keep me mindful of what life is. And
yeah,
I keep wishing for the end of the week or the end of the month or this vacation or this meet or whatever. And I keep looking forward. There's going to come a time when I don't have any more of those days to look forward to left. And I do not want to
yeah,
go, I missed everything that happened before because I was so looking forward to that next step.
yeah.
I try to be so mindful of stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been working hard, for almost maybe close to a decade now. And we're in a business environment, right? We're Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And of course, so everybody's like, oh, one day closer to Friday, and all these kind of things.
Yep.
And so as we got, as I started kind of changing my mindset, like someone would say, oh, it's Friday, and I go, I know, man, almost Monday. And not in a negative like damn Monday's gonna come. It's like man, I can't wait till Monday. And I
That's
remember
great.
one time someone, I won't say they called me out, but they were like, wait, Monday, and I was like, yeah, bro, I love what I do. Like I can't, like I don't get to talk to Mike Garber on Saturdays. I
Right.
need Monday to come here so I can do work and help serve coaches. So again, that mindset is just is really really important. So as you're going through high school, now you've let the cat out of the bag. Like every good coach, you're always a step ahead of me. We already know you went to SEMO. We're going to talk about that. We already know you become a teacher. No surprises there. When did the idea that I want to become a teacher, did that occur sometime through high school or more senior as you're getting ready to look towards college and have to start picking that major?
Yeah. So um, early on, like seventh grade, I remember thinking I'm going to be an architect because I had a drafting
Oh,
class in middle school, and I was like, this is a lot of fun. My dad
oh,
owned was
wow.
um, vice president of Punzac Heating and Air Conditioning, and so they
Hmm.
worked on a lot of home designs, and he would bring home all that kind of stuff and
Yeah.
architectural drawings and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is really fun, and so I'd kind of be over his shoulder and watching him. And then my eighth grade year, I got into geometry and realized this is not going to work out at all because math is not my strong suit. Uh,
Yeah.
Running
Yeah.
math, I'm great at. You give me some times and calculate whatever the laps are. Yeah, I can nail that. But the SOHCAHTOA,
Square
scary.
footage.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
yeah, yeah.
I'm done. Get out of here. Like my son is in honors math, everything, and honors the
Oh,
and he's already like, Dad, can you help? Or like I sit down to try to help, and I just get up and walk away. I'm like,
yeah. I,
what? Like I've
I,
got no help.
I'm a teacher's worst nightmare. First of all, thank God my wife has started doing long-term math subs because now she's gotten back into it. She was really good at math back in the day too. But for me, when my son asked me about some of the math, where I'm like, hey, what ChatGPT say? I was like, don't cheat. I don't want you, but I was like, ask them. Like, that's your tutor, buddy. I can't
Right.
do this. I went to high school and college in Alabama. 2 plus 2 is about the height of my algebraic equations there,
Sure.
man. I don't know this stuff, man. They're in a lot of the honors and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're way past me, bro. I,
Yeah.
I always make fun. I don't think I've ever told this story. Not that you're a math teacher, but you'll get a kick out of just education. So in eighth grade, I took pre-algebra, which is pretty high for an eighth grader, right? And then I got to high school and I realized, why in the world do I want to work hard? Like I just didn't see anything to be good for that. That's not a good thing, but that's just where my mentality was, right? And so we had to do 3 math classes through your high school career. I think
Mhm.
probably everybody's up to 4 now, but we had to do 3. So I saw that I could sign up for basic math freshman year. I was like, cool. I did pre-al. And I did okay in pre-algebra. So I took regular basic math
Mhm.
freshman year and aced it. I mean, it was just, it was like 2 plus 2 type stuff.
Sure.
Sophomore year, they had some kind of math called consumer math. I don't even remember what it was. I think it was just all regular basic math, but they put a dollar sign in front of stuff. I really do. I don't remember.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I aced all that. Didn't take math my junior year, and then senior year I have to take math again because I got to get 3 years. I took pre-algebra again. I did that in eighth grade and did good. Like I think I got B plus, A minus.
Yeah.
So I took it. I'm destroying. I had a great what was her Kim. Sad that I remember my math teacher's first name, not their last name, Miss Kim. She was amazing, just so awesome, loved her to death. And I remember, I'm ace. Here's how good I was doing in the class. My whatever quarter or semester grade, I got a 99.7, and then when I got my actual report card, she gave me a 99. And as you might imagine, Mike, I was kind of the class clown. So the next day after report cards, I go to I think it was Miss Thomas, Kim Thomas. I go to teacher and I say, "Hey, you gave me a 99, but you told me I had a 99.7." And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, you taught me that rounds up to 100. Like, why did I not get 100?" And she's like, "Mike, 100 is perfect. You weren't perfect. You missed some problem somewhere. I can't consciously give you 100." I was like, "But you taught me." Like, I was giving it to her. I was like, "You taught me." But this how ridiculous it was that I was in this class that there was just no challenge, like, getting hundreds for crying out loud.
Sure.
I just did not want to work for her. Then I went to college and they made me take pre-cal, and I was like, yeah, I'm out. I can't do this math. Yeah,
I know. Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. Anyway, I don't think I've ever told that story. I just had to tell that story.
That's pretty good.
Uh, okay, so you want to be an architect at first, and that's cool. I
That was
love that you actually
first.
had that, which is a crazy major. I had archi majors in my fraternity, and that's a whole different life, at least back then. So how did it turn to, and when did it turn to like, I might be a teacher?
I think eighth grade was
Oh,
the geometry class, and I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I'm not going to be able to do the math part of it. I like the drawing and the creativity and all that kind of stuff, but when it comes to the other side of it, there's a lot of little things I'm not gonna be able to do. And it just so kind of coincided with I was in Boy Scouts. We would work at some camps. So I was a camp counselor for a couple
mm,
summers, and so you got to start kind of working with younger kids. I realized early that like the younger level, like at elementary age, and that's not my jam. Um, but the older you get, and then you start working with coaches, and you start getting into school, and you start having teachers that are really impactful. That to me was the difference. Is okay. I'm good at this stuff. I can communicate well. I can learn these things. I like this stuff. I can coach and I can teach. I would say probably sophomore year of high school was that time frame for me, and it
Yeah.
never changed. And I was pretty locked in, and that went along with having success, on the course and on the track.
Mm.
Um, like I said, I had great coaches, and I even like today, like even recently, the one of my friends has a daughter who runs in Bloomington. We ran together. He's a state police officer, and my wife was at the meet because I was at practice, and my son was running, and his daughter was running, and they are finishing, and his daughter is running down the straightaway, down the finish. And she said she was looking at him, my friend, cheering his daughter on, and we looked exactly the same in the way that we cheer on because he and I ran together, and that he was jumping up and down and hollering and screaming. And she said, it could have been you doing that. And I'm like, that's the coaching influence. That's those guys. Even today, again, 43 years old, we
All
act the
right.
same as we would have the coaches that we had 25 years ago. Like it's the same
Yeah.
stuff. And I love that she even said that because I can see it. I can see it in my head. I can see Jeff Reed and I'm running and I'm finishing and he's hopping up and down and going crazy. And that's me now every single time. Like my enthusiasm comes from those guys. And,
I love
and
it.
that was one of those like turning point moments for me is having those guys as my coach. And then my senior year, Jeff stepped down as an assistant and Jay Rogers came in. He was an All-American at North Central College in the 5,000 meters. Really strong on the running side of things. He was so intricate when it came to data. He was a vice president of a bank, so he really had all the data-driven stuff down and the feedback he would give us after meets our senior year because we were really good my senior season and it wasn't just like it was both sides of it, right? So now we have the positivity of Mike Johnson, and you have the
Right.
data driven stuff of Jay Rogers, and before that you have the motivational technique, and just you can feel that desire and that love that came from that coaching staff and Jeff being in there. There's all these just pieces
Mm.
that start coming together, and it was like I got to do this. Like I left high school with a guarantee I'm going to be a teacher, and I knew it, and I knew what my path was, and I've told my parents this when we do our parent meetings. I was called to be here. Like this is my calling.
Mm.
I know
Yeah.
for a fact that it's why I've been put on this earth. It's why I'm here,
I
and
love that.
I just I know it. I know it in my bones, and it's because of guys like that that really pushed me in the direction that I know I'm supposed to go.
I love that. I'm gonna make a few assumptions here. You correct me where I'm wrong, and then I'll ask the question. I'm assuming that when you're going to become a teacher, if you're going to become like an elementary school teacher, um, like there's one major for element because I'm thinking like fourth grade, like oh you teach everything, but you mentioned your current events. I'm thinking like social studies, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And when you get to high school, you're a math teacher or you're a science teacher or PE teacher, whatever. When do you have to like make that decision of I'm going to be an elementary, so I'm going to, take a lot. I assume all the classes are in a lot of things, or I'm going to be a math. Like, when do you actually like? When do you pick your major within your major? You know what I'm
Pretty
saying?
early on, honestly, because while you get your education classes out of the way and you're actually going in and doing the observation hours and kind of getting into classrooms, the earlier you know, the earlier they can get you into classrooms that are within your field.
Mm.
And what was cool about Missouri was it was an umbrella, right? Social studies broadly writ, so it's psychology, sociology, economics, current events, the
Oh,
in U.S. history. So the entire umbrella social studies category, I'm actually certified in. When I came over to Illinois and transferred over the certification, I came over as a social studies. Today, it is very more pointed. So if you're going to be an economics teacher, especially when it comes to the AP side of things, you have to have that
right.
economics endorsement, not just social studies. You're a little more finely tuned. The same thing is true
Yeah.
world history or U.S. history or any of those kind of things.
Huh.
They want you to have a more specific type of endorsement, but because my certification is a little bit different, I'm able to teach all of it. And
Hmm.
so while I've been at Glenwood for a long time and I'm one of the senior people in my department, what was cool about teaching in Missouri is that I was in a bunch of different classrooms. I saw a bunch of different things. I got to see a bunch of different styles, things that I wanted to do, some stuff I
Hmm.
realized I didn't want to do, ways that I was going to manage a classroom. Um, and then, you kind of start to formulate what your patterns are going to be and you pull from
Hmm.
people that you were, that you saw were passionate in the
Hmm.
classroom. It's the
Hmm.
kind of stuff that I did.
Cool. I love that. That's cool. I just kind of hit me when I was thinking about teachers. I'm like, when do you actually start picking that? And because not
Yeah.
everybody has to pick elementary, I assume you don't have to pick. Okay, so as you get to senior year in high school and you start looking at colleges, going to SEMO, great school. In fact, our volleyball manager played volleyball at SEMO,
Oh,
so
really?
we know, yeah, we know it real well. Missouri State. How did you pick SEMO? And did you run there?
I had a couple of options. I was pretty good. I had some times. My junior year of track, I was kind of working into this direction where I knew I wanted to be going to college, and I kind of had these desires. Senior year of cross country, I was moving in the right direction, and again, our team was really good. We had some very untimely injuries at the end of the season. One of our guys stress fracture in his femur. Somebody else got a stress fracture in his tibia, and so like two of our top five, maybe six were out. And I went in normally as like our number four, number five guy on a team that was really pretty good. At state, I was our number two. And I probably should not have been had all the injuries not played out that way.
Right.
But it was, such a remarkable race for me. And it was one of those things like I really can do this. And then wintertime going into spring of my senior track season, I'd kind of looked at like Augustana. I was looking at SEMO, and I kind of had some of these options. And I got iliotibial band syndrome really bad indoor season, just like right at
Oh,
the end of indoor, beginning of outdoor season. And I'd never had it. I'd never heard of anybody that have it. There was a doctor and orthopedic people in town who I was going to, and they were telling me all about it. And I'm like, I've never heard of this. Like I've been running for years at this point, and I've never heard of anybody on a team myself. There's no Google. I'm not sure where to go to find answers. And so I'm trying to like pull from doctors or people that we kind of knew as a family on how to get through this thing. And I basically ran like the first race of my senior year and the very last race of my senior year, and that was about it. And if you're going to go
oh,
run in college, you kind of have to have the times to be able to get the money. And they
yeah.
were like, you need to run 4:30, or no, I'm sorry, 4:25 or something like that. And I'm like, I can get there. I think I can figure this out. I think in my senior year I can do this, and it just never materialized.
Yeah.
It was kind of brutal because I talked to the coach, I saw the campus, I was really excited about it, but it just wasn't in the cards. And
Yeah.
honestly, it was the best thing probably for me because I went and volunteer coached at a couple different local high schools. I was at Cape Central High
Mm,
School, just knocked on the door of the coach and was like, hey, I've got this experience. I did the fraternity thing too, and I was in college, but like I was running all the time. I'd jump into 5Ks around town. I jumped into a program as soon as I could. And so I was student teaching and kind of like student coaching at the same time.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start to develop my philosophy. I'm going to start developing what I want to do and how I want to do it. And I met my wife because of in the fraternity, one of my fraternity brothers' little sisters is my current wife. And it's just like it was one of those things like everything happened for a reason. Like there's all these
Yeah.
things. I met him. He became a close friend. You go into that part of it, and I start dating. Casey's my wife, and it just like everything kind of falls together exactly
Yeah.
like it's supposed to. And I wasn't meant to run in college. Like
Yeah.
it's not an experience I was supposed to have, but I have
Yep.
assistant coaches on my staff that have ran college in a bunch of
Mhm.
different places. I've had different assistant coaches, and they have that experience. And I go, hey, you want to run in college? Those are the people you need to talk to. I might not have the
Mhm.
experience of that, but they do, and go
Yeah.
talk to them and get that experience.
We've had a lot of conversations the past couple months here on the podcast about, where you are today, like right now, is exactly where you're supposed to be
Yeah,
right now. Doesn't mean it's a good place or a bad place, and it doesn't mean you're at that place forever, but where you are. So, because we like to look back a lot of times, we like to put like the past on a pedestal and be like, oh man, first of all, back in the day, it was so much better than it is today.
yeah,
And we also like to think about like the things that we missed out on that we don't know, by the way, until we're older, but then we think about all these times we missed and think about, sometimes we can go, oh man, how much better it would have been, right, Mike? So it'd be easy for you to slip in and go, man, if I'd have run college track, gosh, how much better of a coach would I be, or how much,
sure.
whatever, right? And we don't realize because we always think about the positive of whatever didn't happen, right? But we don't think about that uh, the 50-50 equal option is something bad could have happened. You could have
Sure.
run college and just got run into the ground, had a terrible experience, decide that you hate track and you're never going to coach it again, and you're not on the podcast today because you're call it a regular teacher. You're not a track
That's right.
coach. like we forget about like these things because we do it, it's easy for us to do it with like old girlfriends. Like, oh man, if I'd have just met Susie, and it's like, man, Susie could have
Sure.
murdered you. I don't know, or vice versa, by the way. I guess, we go right here. So I love your attitude of like, all right, man, look, did I want to run? Sure.
Yeah.
But I wasn't meant to be. You might not have met, you know what, Mike? You might not have met your wife
That's what I'm
if you
saying.
were
There's
running,
no way.
right?
There's no way that ever would have happened. And
That's
she is the
right.
biggest blessing in my life. The way
That's right.
there's no question about it. Like
Yeah,
I couldn't coach if she wasn't my wife because she has
that's
been.
right.
I got some stories I could tell, and we may get into it. But like, she's one of those people that holds everything down here when I'm gone. And
Hmm.
I always say, like during cross country season, I work like 65 to 70 hours a week. During track season, I'm 75 to 80 hours a week
Right,
because I'm at all of these meets all the time. And she makes sure the kids get where they're going. They do the homework. They care of
right.
everything. If it was not for her, there is no
Yeah,
way I would ever be as successful as a coach. I just
yeah.
wouldn't. There's no way.
I
It's
love
because
that. So even though, so you had a rough end of your senior year of high school, and I can say I hate that for you. I don't wish any kid to be injured, but I mean, look where you are today, so it all worked out, and I love that. And you knew you were going to be a teacher. And I didn't ask this question, but the way you talked about when you got to SEMO, you started like, all right, well, I started volunteering at these local programs. Did you know on top of I want to be a teacher, I also want to be a track coach?
yeah.
Was that early through high
Yeah.
school too?
I couldn't be doing one without the other. And I think I knew going
Yeah,
into it because I was going to do the student teaching thing that I was going to have to figure out a place to be able to get in because I wanted to start to learn
right.
what was what worked at my high school. How did we do that? What
Hmm.
does somebody else do? Like I already kind of knew the ways that I wanted to get into it. And so you start sparking this interest because like I'm doing the educational program. I know what I'm going into. But if I'm learning all of these things about teaching, if I'm going to be a coach too, because I'm going to have to do both. Like if I'm going to do one, I'm going to do the other.
Hmm.
What is it about running that I love? Is it the actual aspect of running? Is it the one side of it that is like the training side of it? Is it the psychological side of it? Is it the
Hmm.
motivational side of it? Like I need to learn from more people. And that's kind of where most of my career has been. Like in fact, like when I was preparing for this last night, I was thinking about like all of the influences in my life. And one of the things you're going to hear probably as we're talking over the next while is like I give most of the credit to other people in my life because without those people, without those influences, I would never have been able to accomplish what we've
Right.
accomplished at our program. And so I give a lot of the credit to them uh, because I'm trying to learn.
Hmm.
I'm trying to be so mindful about what I don't know, and I know there's a ton that I don't know. I know there's some stuff that I do know. I know some of the stuff maybe I got lucky. Some of the stuff kind of came out the right way. We got some talented kids. There's all these little things happen, but like Mike Johnson, Jeff Reed, Jay Rogers, like that was the beginning for me. Like my
Right.
parents, my dad, my mom, and my family, and the way they made me feel about running early, and then those influences in high school. And then from there, it's like the stepping off point into the next situation that I get to
Yeah.
get into and the way the rest of my life goes.
So in high school, not all of the teammates you had go on to be track coaches, right? In fact, the vast majority do not. Maybe you and a couple others did. But you knew kind of, I'm gonna say early. When I mean early, like sometimes we have coaches on here who don't know they want to be a track coach until senior year of college or heck past that. We've had plenty of people that were like, I was never going to become a coach. I went into the private sector, and then after 5 years was like, yeah, this sucks. I do want to become a coach, right? And they become
Yeah.
great coaches. You knew it kind of early as far as like in high school. So when you look back, you got perspective now. You can look back, 20 years ago. Did you like when you would ask questions, we typically as young people will ask questions of our coaches. Sometimes it's questions of like, why are we doing this? Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
uh but I'm always intrigued by the guys and gals who become coaches, the type of questions. When you look back, were you the kind of guy, the kind of kid that would ask questions about the workouts because you wanted to understand, well, why did we do this today and now we're doing this tomorrow, and why didn't we do last Tuesday we did this workout, why didn't we do this one this Tuesday? Like, you're trying to like those kind of questions are kids that are trying to figure out like, why, oh,
Right.
I want to eventually do this, so I want to learn. Do you remember the type of like kind of questioning as a youngin' you were?
Yeah. I think one of the things that, because when I guess most of the time when you have coaches that are teachers, um, they're trying to make you a student of the sport. And I think that's something that I really care
Sometimes,
about.
sometimes.
Yeah, and not maybe not everybody's like that, but I
Yeah, I'd
definitely.
say that might be your experience. I'm not sure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so like we're doing this, it's like, why did we do this kind of run? Why a long run this day? Why did we do these
Mm-hmm.
this way,
Right.
and I wasn't necessarily inquiring fully about the why. And I think there's a difference between asking
Hmm.
questions and questioning. And I think today we
Oh, I
mix
like
those
that.
two things up, where
Hmm.
I would like to know something versus explain to me why we're doing this because I'm not sure I trust you. Like
Yeah,
those
justify it. Right.
yes,
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
are two different ways to go about it. And I'm always the asking questions. And I tell my athletes that, I tell my parents that.
But sorry to
If
interrupt.
you're going to go through this, don't question what we're doing.
The,
Ask a
the,
question why we're doing it.
I want to interrupt you real quick because first of all, it's my show, so I can do what I want. But I'm
Sure.
always just so curious. When you said that, I love that. I love that justifying versus like I want to know, right? And it just kind of hit me when about the kid who's asking because I want you to justify it because they don't trust you,
Right.
and it hit me when you said that when you said and they don't trust you. I think that's what even a kid who does it. I mean, we got to give a lot of grace to 14 to 18-year-old kids. By the way, we got to
Yes,
give
we
grace to
do.
18 to 20. We got to give grace to each other right now as 40-year-olds, my friend.
Yes.
Um, so sometimes like a 15, 16-year-old kid don't know how to ask the question, but I think it does come from that place of I don't trust you. And it's not you, Mike. It's an adult in my life, could be a
Sure.
male in my life, could be a coach in my life. It's like, man, I've been burned before.
Yep.
Or I've had a friend, they only have 15 years of life, so maybe they have a friend that got burned before. It's like, I don't trust you. So I want to know, why are we doing this workout? Like, I need you to tell me that I'm going to be safe. They're trying to be safe here.
Sure.
So, because we will, not downplay, but we'll judge the kid. It's like, oh man, this kid's just a pain in my butt. They're not going to become. They're not asking because they want to become a coach. They're asking because they want to fight me on everything. And it's like, yeah, but it's from a base. I'm kind of talking this out actually. This is the first time I've kind of thought about this the way you'd said that. But I think they're asking you, and maybe they're trying to get you to slip up or whatever because they don't trust you, and it
Sure.
may not be anything that you did, but
It
because
has
you're in front of
experience.
them, it's your responsibility to help
Yeah.
to help them see that males or coaches or whatever their stigmatism is, that we can be trusted, and you've got to show a lot of patience and grace. Do you find that like thinking about you've got a bigger experience than just coaching necessarily? I'm assuming you got kids in your classes that'll come up to you and be like, so when you said X, Y, and Z, why? What in the world? But I heard so and so say that. Again, they don't trust you. You're a teacher. They get told sometimes that teachers are bad people and things like that. Do you find kids? What is the basis behind? Are you seeing kids in all spectrums of like, yeah, there's kids that don't trust, and there's kids that want to be teachers, or is there kids? Are kids just jerks? And there are some, I'm sure, because I know how I was.
Yeah. I think it's more of the former than the latter. I think we have more kids who are looking to ask questions because they actually care or they want to know more or they're trying to become students of the sport.
Hmm.
Um, and I've had both, and even now you have both. And sometimes they don't know how to ask the questions. Sometimes they're asking the questions, as you said, because they're trying to gotcha and be like, oh, but you said in this other time. And I don't think it's as frequent or as often
Yeah.
in some ways. And I think when you've been around for a long enough time and people have a positive view of who you are, I think that lends to a little bit of credibility.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I explain everything. I don't ever tell the kids, we're going to go do this workout because I said so. I always
Yeah,
go,
the
here's
old
the
I said so.
physiological
Yeah, because I'm
response.
the coach. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Right, right, right,
I
right.
go through the science of it. Here's the physiological response. We're looking for lactate threshold today. Here's what that means. Here's what the physiological response to your body we're looking for. And
Hmm.
here's how that's going to help you, maybe not this week, but in 2 weeks or 3 weeks when that response actually fully acclimates within your body. Here's why we're going to do that. And
Hmm.
and if I explain it and I'm concise and I'm specific and I use the terminologies they've learned in biology class or AP Chem or whatever it is they're in, and
Right,
I'm like ATP synthesis, they're like, well, we just learned about that the Krebs cycle the other day. Like those are the kind
right,
of things. I'm not a bio guy, but I've studied human anatomy and physiology long enough
right,
that I can speak their language. And if they hear it from their AP teacher and they hear it from their coach at practice, they go, okay, maybe he does know what he's talking about. And
right.
then they see the results of what we're doing and they go, okay, well, now we're running faster than we've ever run before. We're setting school records and the things that we're doing. Now we're starting to see this down the line rolling. Okay, yeah, he really does know what he's doing. And I think you
Yeah,
have to have those pieces. Not that I have to prove myself, but we as adults sometimes to get credibility need to have the
yeah,
success side of it and have the language that they know how to speak that
yeah,
we know.
yeah. I love that. That's great. I'm becoming more of a fighter against the notion that all kids suck. I mean, we just hear that every day. I really hate saying, the media. First of all, I was a print journalism major, so I'm always a little defensive of the media. But I'm also like, dude, the media is not just the media of like, social media and newspapers and CNN and Fox News and all that stuff. Media to me is also like, well, what do you consume and how do you consume it? That
Right.
to me is the media part, right? Because like you'll see, I don't know if you've ever seen this, they'll say, so and so did this and you don't see it anywhere. And it's like, no, it was on every one of them. You just didn't happen to see it, but it was everywhere,
Sure.
And so in society, I'll say, not media, in society, there's a big trope about, young kids are just, they're lazy. They only want to use Chat GPT. They want to be in their phones 24/7 and things like that. And the more as my kids, you said 13 and 10, did you say for your kids?
So Wes, my son will be 13 in December. My daughter just turned 10 like last week.
Oh man, our kids are birthdays. They might be the same day. So my son turns 15 in December, and my daughter turns 12 in 5 days
Yeah.
from when we're recording. So same
December,
birthday times. Yeah.
yeah, December 19th is my son and the
Oh
8th
yeah.
of December is my daughter. So
Yeah, December 9th. Yeah. So as my kids are getting, you get to see it all the time because you're in high school. So you've seen kids from the day your kids were born all the way up to the kids that are graduating your classes. I don't see that. So I'm living through with my kids, right? And
sure.
I see, like we just came back from a weekend, super busy weekend. My son was in a band competition on Saturday up in Naperville. Our sister-in-law was running the marathon on Sunday, but he also had a fishing tournament. He's a big, bass fishing tournament guy. And I was watching. It was the first band competition I've been to. I've seen him play at the football game and stuff like that, but this is the first time like for a competition. And I'm just watching. I'm not a band guy. I wasn't a band or anything in my life. And I'm just watching. I get to see all these other high schools. Maybe Glenwood was there. I don't even know. And I'm just like, wow, this is a bunch of 14 to 18-year-old kids. These are the lazy kids everybody's talking about. These kids are learning where
Mhm.
they're supposed to be, how to play the freaking instrument. There's more pageantry going on with it, not just playing the instrument and march. Like
Sure.
there was so much. And I was just like, wait a minute. I thought kids were lazy and didn't care. And I'm like, these groups of kids, and I can go to a football game and see the
Sure.
same thing, and a basketball game and track meets, etc. It's just amazing to me that we will sit there and say kids are lazy, and it's like, man, maybe you forgot how you were when you were 14, by the way, because I bet you were very similar to today's 14-year-olds. You just maybe didn't have a cell phone in your hand. Okay, you're in SEMO, you're not running. That's cool. We've had many coaches who were not college track athlete. I wasn't a college track athlete, so there's no judgment for me. You start volunteering. You also start real early. You mentioned about classroom observations. If you were to have said those things and said, and I did not become a teacher or I did not become a coach, the easy question to ask is, oh, so why? What did you experience, right? So that didn't happen. So I'm going to ask a harder question
Yeah.
is, so why did it not draw you away when you went to as a 19-year-old freshman sophomore at SEMO and you're volunteering with kids and they're kids, they're your age essentially,
Yeah.
right? But it more reinforced, oh yeah, I want to be a coach.
Yeah.
What was about it? What kept you there?
I mean, being able to start to work with kids and being around like the athletic side of it and then also the classroom side of it, you kind of get this understanding of where that blending comes in. The classroom experience was great because I got to start doing the thing that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. You're telling the stories of history, you make them interesting. I mean, everybody's had at least one older gentleman or lady that is teaching world history for the 100th time and has said the same things, and it kind of gets dry and it kind of gets boring, and there's no excitement and there's no goofiness and there's no stupidity. And I bring that to the classroom all the time. Like I say, I don't teach 5 classes a day. I put on
Wait,
5 shows
did you
a day.
just say you bring the goofy and stupidity to teaching? Is that what?
100%.
Okay, I just want to make
100%.
sure I heard that right.
Ask
Okay, I
any of
love
my
that.
kids
I love
today.
that.
We were talking about fires and homes and this whole thing in my current events class. I got down on my hands and knees and acted like one of my athletes or one of my students was a firefighter, and I was begging him and like I was just acting like a nutcase. But the kids that are normally like checked out or not listening, everybody's laughing and looking at me, and I'm like, I don't care. I'll be the dummy. Doesn't matter.
I love
You
that.
all listen, and I guarantee you're going to go home and talk to your parents about everything that we did in the classroom that day.
That's
And if
true.
that conversation is the only or maybe the first conversation you've had with them about something that's happened in a classroom in a year or 6 months or 2 years or ever, it's because it's something that we did in a classroom. And like I learned
That's
that
cool.
early on. I can be the class clown, the court jester, all the stupidity, like all that's me, and I'm good with it because they understand that that's like part of my role. And like I said, I put on 5 shows a day. I don't. teach
5
5 classes a day,
shows a day. Yeah, I love
5 shows
that.
a day. I mean, this what you're seeing for me, the way I act, like this is tame in comparison to what the kids in my classroom see.
That's so cool, man.
So I did that, and obviously, like you learn that in a classroom, what you can get away with, what's going to
Yeah.
actually engage the kids, what they care about, the lingo they use, and how
Yeah,
much that's changed over the last
you,
10 years.
you certainly weren't taught that. So how did you learn? And I don't want to skip too far. I don't want to get to Glenwood just yet. So,
Sure.
but can I assume you did not learn that in the formal education that you were doing through
No,
SEMO?
I,
Like you,
I learned I
okay,
learned more in my experiences than I ever would in classrooms that
yeah,
taught you how to be a teacher.
yeah, okay.
I
That's what
learned
I thought.
way more. Again, you learn what to do and you learn what not to do. You learn what
Right.
works and you learn what the kids absolutely hate and nobody wants to be
Yeah,
around.
yeah. So as you as you go to finish through SEMO, before we get to okay, I've graduated and I got to get a job, was there any other experiences, whether it was coaching or
Yeah.
teaching through SEMO before we go
Yeah.
get
So
on to
there's
the
one. I was at Cape Central and I volunteered for their cross country team under their coach. And his name is escaping me right now. And I'm sure I'll think of it after we get off of our
exactly?
call. We were at a park in Cape and they were doing a workout. And I kind of like stationed myself near the end of the rep that they were doing. It was some sort of repeat interval workout. And it was in the grass and it was kind of like a hill thing. And they would come down. And I can see it in my brain because it was one of those moments that was like a core memory situations. And a kid who was not the number one kid in the team, he was maybe number 5, 6, or 7. He was still a varsity. He was just the backside of the varsity kid. And he was getting done. And I'm sitting there hollering and screaming and cheering him on. Yeah, you're doing great. Let's go finish this up. Get your arms into it, whatever. And I'm just hollering at him. And he gets done and he gets through and he puts his hands on his knees and he gets up and he looks at me and he goes, I didn't know you cared that much. And I was like, of course I care that much. Like, what do you think I'm doing here? Like, it was one of those, like, that wasn't my response. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, man, like this is why I'm here. I'm here to be able to pump you up. I'm here to get you to get across that finish
Yeah.
line when you didn't think that you could finish it, when you thought it was too hard, when you didn't think there was something left to give. Because you know what? That's what Jeff Reed did to me. That's the jumping up and down and hollering and screaming when I don't think I can go anymore and I find an extra gear to pass one person at the end of a meet. Like that's what was imbued to me. And if I can do that to you, of course I care. Of course I
Did
care. He
did
did great. And
did
I high five and you move on and goes to the
did
next one. But I remember him saying that. I'm going,
did that cut you though?
maybe a little bit,
Like
but it was
like
one of those like, of course I do.
yeah,
Has
yeah. 'Cause
I told you that
I
before?
I've had coaches come up from like NAIA or JUCO and be like, I'll say something to them positive, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that you cared about JUCO coaches." I'm like, and it hurt because I'm like, "Oh my God, what do you mean?" Like I love, like, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like, what am I not doing to express that? Like when you said that, that's the first thing I was like, oh my, like for a guy like hearing about your passion and everything. I know you're a 21-year-old Mike Garber at this point,
Yeah.
roughly. But I wondered if it was like, oh, what's that kid like? What am I not doing at practice that kid doesn't realize? Of course,
Well, I was the
I
new
care
guy at that
about
point. We
it.
have to remember what did his
Yeah.
other coaches that he had not do?
Mm,
Was there another experience that he had where he didn't have somebody at the finish line of a race? And there are kids
right.
that have
Right.
parents that don't show up to their stuff and they're not being cheered on by somebody on the sideline.
Right.
So it's like, well, that just reinforces that this is necessary. What I'm going to do
Right.
made it
Right.
more necessary because there are kids who might not ever have that. So
Yeah.
of course I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to be louder and crazier and more boisterous than I was
Yeah.
before because of course I care. And here's
Yeah.
how you're going to know it. You're going to hear
Yeah.
me across the course, and I'm going to make sure when I say surge that I see those 3 steps because you heard me say it, and I'm going to be
Yeah.
crazy for it, and I'm fine with it, and everybody's going to know
Yeah.
that I'm there.
Isn't that interesting? You call that a core memory. So I can see you actually playing that memory
Yeah,
in
I
your
can see it in
head.
my
Isn't
head.
that amazing? Something as a 20-ish, 21-year-old kid, you're still a kid at that point, like
Yeah,
how much that would affect you 20 years down the line. That's
very
amazing
much
to
so.
me. That's really cool. I love that. All right, so you graduate SEMO. We got to get in
Yep.
the real world here. Do you go straight to Glenwood or
I didn't. So my
yeah?
first 2 years, I went to East Alton Wood River High School. It was one of
Is that
those
in Illinois?
times where like, what's that?
Is that in Illinois?
Metro East Side of St. Louis. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
what I
like
thought. Alton.
Bethalto, Granite City,
Yeah.
Wood River, Alton.
How does it work? You got your teaching degree and certificate, I'm assuming, in Missouri, but you come over to Illinois to teach. How's that work?
So you have to take the test. So basically, there's not a lot of states that will have an agreement or reciprocation of their
Right.
certifications. So when you go to a different state, you basically see like, okay, what did I do here that was required, and what do I need to do here using this to be able to get a certification in the state of Illinois? You go to the local regional office of education. You have to basically apply. And there it was um, Morgan County. Madison County, Madison County, and so you basically have to go through that process. And so my teacher certificate, carries over a little bit. So you have to take a test and you have to do these paperwork things. Um, and I actually, I'm not a classroom teacher at that point. I'm like kind of the long-term sub thing,
Hmm.
an aide part-time. So I'm in classrooms, but I'm in different types of classrooms.
All
I
right.
volunteer assistant coach at that school, and I'm there for 2 years. Uh, and it's a funny school district.
So hold on,
Um,
stay right there for me for a second.
yeah,
Would you, looking back, would you recommend for someone kind of similar to you, like, oh, you're going to be a teacher, so you go into, so you're going to go to college, you're going to be a teacher. Maybe you don't have it figured out if you're going to be a high school or elementary or history versus math or whatever, but okay, I'm going to be a teacher. Would you recommend a kid uh, go to this, go to a college inside of the state that they at least think as an 18-year-old that they're going to live in? Like, would it have been easier to go to Eastern Illinois and teach here in Illinois versus Missouri and I know it was
maybe.
doable, you did it, but I'm just wondering if you would recommend that or not, or does that
It
even
really wasn't
matter?
that difficult, I wouldn't
Hmm.
say. And, I got some scholarship money. I would have gotten athletic scholarship. That obviously didn't happen. I got some
Hmm.
academic money to go to Missouri. They were coming up to Illinois, specifically the Springfield area, to try to get people to come down to SEMO. So
Right.
they offered some scholarships. They were offering in-state tuition. So I got some other scholarships. So it really was, relatively affordable compared to today's markets to be able to go
Hmm.
to college.
Yeah.
Um, but the transition really wasn't that hard. And one of the
Okay.
things I liked is I knew their education program, you got to get in the classroom early. And I
Hmm.
didn't want to wait until my senior year of college to be able to get in the
Right.
classroom. The earlier I can get in, the better. And so I did. And I think it made a lot more sense.
So if I'm graduating here in Illinois in the next year or two, but man, whether it's a financial packet, which I'm always for that, whether it's a financial aid package or just family, maybe my family lives in Seattle, you don't you wouldn't poo-poo that. You're like, oh man, you want to go to University of Washington, but
Yeah. It should be fine.
cool. You can still come back to Illinois. You
Yeah.
have to do some things, but it'll be okay. Okay, all right.
Yeah. It's not
I,
a lot
I,
of
I
hoops
just
to jump
I,
through. At least it
I just
wasn't 20 years ago.
yeah, I just remember it being because even though we have maybe today we still have a Department of Education, but the states run the thing. So I always remember there was like you don't get to just come over to another state and
Yeah.
automatically teach. But I didn't know if it was like, oh yeah, you got to go back to college for a year or some crap like
No,
that. So it's just
not
okay.
that intense.
All right, cool, cool, cool. I
Yeah.
always think those are important things because even though we don't have very many athletes that listen to the podcast, we do have some, but it's very, very small high school athletes that listen to the podcast. But we have other mics out there, right? So we have other teachers that do see every 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. So I just want to make sure, like, oh, okay, this
Yeah.
guy's been doing it for 20 years. He doesn't see a problem with it. So maybe I should stop telling people they should not go out of state or whatever. Okay,
Sure.
cool, cool, cool. So you go to the East Alton area, the kind of east of St. Louis. I know that area well. I've been there
Yep.
for a lot of things, kind of Edwardsville and Alton and
Yep.
all those kind
Yep.
of Glenbert and all those kinds of places. So you do some aid
Yeah.
work and yeah, okay.
There for 2 years, and it was one of
Coaching?
those things like where my position wasn't a permanent position, so it was like at the end of a year you're going to get riffed, and then you're going to be invited back, and so it's this kind of like
Hmm.
flowy time frame
Were you
for me
coaching?
out in the Saltonwood River area. I got to get into some classrooms, I got to do some teaching, but it really wasn't like a place I think that was going to be permanent for me.
Were you
Or
coaching?
I'm sorry.
Were you coaching?
I was assistant coaching. I was
Yeah.
under
Okay.
track and cross country. I was working along with the coaches down there.
Yeah. Good.
And so my second year there, at the end of the school year, it's track season, and they're hosting sectionals for girls track at East Altonwood River. And as the buses are coming in and people are getting off the bus, my alma mater, Glenwood High School, is getting off of a bus, and I see Ryan Staley, who I've known Ryan Staley for a very long time. Ryan went to Glenwood. He was a very strong athlete, one of the best runners in Glenwood school history. He was at SEMO with me. He was in a different fraternity than I was, but we always saw each other. We're kind of around. He went to Cape Central and was a teacher there whenever I was doing my student teaching there. So Ryan and I's story is very similar in a lot of different ways, and we've kind of followed each other around. And then when he got off that bus, and we were talking. He shook my hand. It's like, man, it's been a really long time since I've seen you. What are you doing down here? And we kind of like reconnected a little bit. And he was like, you should really try to get back in up to Glenwood. And it was a really short conversation, but I was like, he's right. Like I should really see if I can get back up there. And so at the end of that year, I And understand too, like the East Onwood River thing for me, I had put in an application all over the place. This was a time when teachers were a dime a dozen. And,
Mm,
I'm one of 100 different people who are applying to the Kirkwood School District in St. Louis. I'm one of 100 people who are applying to
right.
Edwardsville High School or Triad or any of these other places. I'm just a guy. And I'm not, the highest, I'm not the lowest. I'm just a guy who wants to coach, which at this time in, early 2000s, there's a ton of people that are like that are out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So to distinguish yourself is very difficult. But Glenwood. I know the people who are there. The guy who's the department chair of the department that I'm in, his first year was my senior year, and he was in one of the classes that I was teaching. I'm sorry, that he was teaching. I was in one of his classes. He was our indoor soccer coach because we needed somebody to coach our indoor soccer team. And so, like, I was like, hey, Brent Duggins is the department chair still. So I apply. School's getting ready to start. They call me up. Hey, we need a history teacher. Somebody's getting ready to leave to go take an administrative job at a different school. Do a phone interview. I remember sitting at West County Mall in the parking lot before school starts, doing a phone interview with the principal, the superintendent, and Brent. And we get on the phone call, and I'm just like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" Like super easy, like the easiest conversation I've ever had. I wasn't nervous for a second. And like the day later, they call me, "Hey, we want you to come up and work." And I don't renew um, my rent, my year rent at the apartment complex I was in. And I show up on my parents' doorstep with a suitcase and a dog. And I'm like, I'm home, baby. And my
Nice.
mom's like, come on in. And my dad's like, we thought you were gone forever. Like it was just this funny
Oh,
dichotomy. But dad's like, get out of the house, go spread your thing. You both spread your wings. He didn't think I was ever coming back. My
yeah.
mom's welcoming me in, and she's making dinner and
I'll
everything.
say
So
she's already cooking it. Right, right,
yeah, right. And my wife and I were dating at this point, and we hadn't gotten engaged yet. It was early on in our courtship. And it was just a funny, like, man, I always said I was never coming back to Chatham. Like I was always destined to be someplace else. And destiny obviously pushed me a completely different direction than I thought I was going to be whenever I was 17 years old. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me was to come back here.
and that
Um,
was 19 years ago.
yeah, that was 19 years ago.
Did you? It's funny. I just had a conversation with my boss. I just finished my 19th year up here at Gill, and I was like, boss, I was like, when I first got here, I was like, I couldn't even look 19 years in the future. I was like, but I don't know that I could have said that I would even been here 5, 10, 15. I wasn't looking, but I was 30 years old. I couldn't even fathom, I was unmarried, everything. And I go, now I look back at 19 years, I'm like, wow, it would have been the best decision of my life. When knowing that you've now been there for 19 years, even though you were coming home, did you
Mhm.
foresee this being, and not that, I mean, you're still a young man, so this doesn't necessarily have to be the last stop,
Yeah.
but did you foresee yourself like, oh yeah, this will be the next 20, at least 20 years?
Yeah, I'm one of those
Is that
people that
right?
now that I'm here, established the roots, kids are in school, um, established a program that was already, I ran for it. It's got a lot of success in its history, and then now to kind of be the person who gets to lead it, uh, I can't I can't imagine being anywhere else. I don't think
That's
I'll go
cool.
anywhere else, and that's fun to be able to say because what's cool about coming back is that I know the courses that we're racing. I've ran at Detweiler multiple times. I was at
Right,
Eastern Illinois University on the Big Blue Track. Like
right,
all of these things that are going on, I know where we're
right.
at, so I can give some insights and the feeling and the scope and how it's changed and what to look for. And if I was coming in from the outside, I don't really know. I have to do a lot more research. Here,
Yeah.
it's hat. And yeah, like I said, I'm meant to be here. This is where I was supposed to be, and I can't imagine being anyplace else.
So on the college level, when we talk about a career, almost to a T, someone would say, "Oh yeah, if you're going to be, 20 years from now as a coach, you're going to be at 5 different places or whatever." That's just, for some reason, whatever the reason. There's some real, actual, tangible reasons. Geography is one of them. In regards to like, in Champaign, Urbana, where we are, there's, what I don't know. 8 different high schools that someone could coach at conceivably. There's one, yeah, one university, Illinois. Then you'd have to go 45 miles down the road to get the next one, Eastern, right? I mean, there's just less options, right? We have to go an hour north to get to Olivet Nazarene. So, but with high schools, we don't generally have that. Somebody, many people are listening right now, and they're in their year one, two, three, four, five of coaching high school track and field, and sometimes it's easy for us to feel, I'm gonna use the word stuck, of like whether I'm already the head coach or maybe I'm an assistant coach, but my head coach is a year older than I am. I'm never going to become the head coach or whatever. talk to us about, you've got 19 years. You didn't start out as the head coach, I don't
Nope.
believe, the way you kind of told your story there. Now you are a head coach of you guys kind of break it up in a little bit different ways and things like that. But you're a head coach now for years. Uh, How did you handle your career as a track coach, knowing that that may be what you're more passionate about? And you're certainly on this podcast because of the track coaching, but it's your secondary career. You're a teacher
Right.
first and foremost, career wise. Now you're a husband, dad, there's other son, there's
Right.
way more things that are more important than being a teacher and a coach in your roles, if we were to list all your roles. But in the career wise, teaching is the number one career, coaching is the secondary. How have you, looking back at the 19, 20 years, how have you navigated being at one school? How do you, maybe the kind of the dumb way of saying this is, how do you stay motivated to get better every year when it's like, man, I could be here 20 years and be the same person I am today? You don't strike me as the guy who wants to be the same today in 2025 as 2030.
Correct. I think in education, you become a person who's like a lifelong learner in many ways. That there are different techniques, there's different ways, there's different things that happen. I think one of the things that's true about me is that whenever I think I know something, I better start thinking again. And that to me
Mm,
is something that's helped me both in the classroom, and I think it's happened to me too in coaching specifically. Um, what's been nice in the classroom is that because I know kind of what I'm going to teach every year, I know the material, I know how to present it so that they understand, and I've evolved in the way that I present things because what I used to be, and I know there's a lot of teachers that are like this, we're going to have a test on Thursday. The test is going to be on Thursday, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to be on Thursday. Well, today in class, in my economics class, one of the things we were talking about at econ was like, I don't know how ready you guys are for this test. We are supposed to have a test tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. We're supposed to have a test on Thursday. But the way it looks is you're asking a lot of questions on the material. And what I would rather give you is a day to prepare. So we're going to use this classroom time. Let's work through your review sheets, get in groups, small groups, ask each other questions, put stuff up on the board. We're going to do supply and demand curve movement. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. And tomorrow we'll do the review game. And then Friday we'll do a test. And to me, I don't need to give a test because I need to give a test. There are a lot of people, and maybe 15 years ago, me would have done that. We're
hmm
supposed to be test day. Test day says test day. Now I'm going, I want to make sure you know it because yes, you might earn your grade, but I can also make and break your grade depending on whenever I give you the test. So
Right.
what I'm going to make sure is you have a good handle on it because I'm not the kind of teacher that says, this is a definitions test. So vomit out onto this paper all of the definitions. I'm a comprehension person. I want you
Mm.
to know that you know it. So I'm going to ask you questions that are going to lead you to have to tell me what you think and why you think it rather than just regurgitate some information. And that to me, I have definitely evolved in my presentation of the material in that way. And I think coaching is very similar.
I was just about to say, sorry, I'm going to say because you're about to say exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was like, oh, I can replace everything he just said with something in the track and field world. A test, I can do a meet or a time trial, regurgitation. Do we just do quarter repeats or do we actually talk about why or how do we break
Yeah.
them up, etc.? Did those two things? I love this, by the way, and I wish this on everybody that they could have that understanding of like, man, your workouts are not written. They're not the Ten Commandments. They weren't written in stone. Like hopefully they're written in pencil actually. And something might have to change that day because of weather, how the kid's feeling. They failed the test, and you're not gonna get the reps out of them, etc. By the way, the opposite's true. They're on cloud nine. You might be able to get an extra rep. So
Right.
I love that. Did the way you've evolved as a teacher, did that go hand in hand with the way you evolved as a coach? Or because of your past experiences, were you already kind of thinking that way as a track coach and that actually helped influence your teach? It's almost a chicken and egg kind of question here.
Yeah, it is. But I do think that learning more about coaching helps you in the classroom.
Hmm.
I think learning more in the classroom helps you as a coach. I think they're not mutually exclusive, but I do think they're mutually beneficial. Um, this past couple years, uh, I have, I wouldn't say reevaluated the way I think about the teams that I coach, but certainly outside influences and getting me to think in different ways have influenced that. There was something that John Marcus and Steve Magnus have posted. They do a podcast. It's called On Coaching Podcast. It's one of my
Yeah, they
favorites,
did a great
and they
job.
do a
Hmm.
High Performance West stuff that they have written. And I actually wrote this down because I want to be able to remember it because it's something I want to bring up. I think coaching and teaching have this in common. And he wrote, this has been years ago, and he called it the four stages of coaching: eager, intoxicated, sober, and serene. And like Everybody goes in it in pretty much that order. At the beginning, when you're teaching or when you're coaching, you have like this novice, limited experience. You want to make a name for yourself. You want to do something different. You want to get your name out there, and that the eagerness of coaching and teaching, you're trying to absorb as much information as you possibly can, and you want to be known. And then some people stay in that area for a long time. I think that eagerness is easy to be entrapped into. And then you get into that intoxicated. You started to have some success, some things you got, you become obsessed. There was one of my assistant coaches who's actually one of my best friends. His name's Caleb Cox. When Caleb and I started working together, he was a football guy. He was an All-American at Illinois College in the decathlon and heptathlon, so he has experience in athletics, but cross country was a completely different animal. He was a football guy who was like, hey, I want to work with you. I had gone through some assistant coaches. I did 1 year of coaching by myself with no assistant, which was extremely difficult, but it also made me appreciate the people that I'm surrounded by. When Caleb came on staff, I was fully intoxicated. He and I would break down every meet. We would break down everything. We were obsessed. We were looking for perfect training. We would talk too much about it. We would talk to the kids too much about it. We lacked discernment. It was like we wanted everything all the time right now. And it was good and it was bad. And I think we learned so much. I learned so much as a coach during that intoxicated portion of my time as a coach because we won a state championship at the end of it. But we probably could have
Wow.
been more successful in the run up to that had I learned a little bit more about myself and how I communicated and the things that I needed to do differently. But I was so drawing from everything and reading everything and not discerning things that maybe were white noise when I should have known better. Um,
Yeah.
and then I moved into that sober. You simplify, you mute the ego, you look at service as a coach to the athletes that you serve rather than um, thinking like, and I don't think it was ever about me, but it certainly was like, my success is tied into their success. And I think a lot of people think that way. Football, baseball, soccer, basketball, take your pick. But coaching in general, I think you have that kind of like, you get away from the understanding of why you're there and that
Right.
service is such a big part of it. And I think I'm in the serene portion now. I think I've had some experience. I've won some, I've lost some, but I have what the goal at the end is, and this is a John Marcus quote, is that you have helped people do things they didn't think were possible.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get to that point to understand why you are there, that is the untroubled waters moment where you can be like, yes, there's still issues. There are still personality conflicts. There are still parental conflicts. There's still all this stuff that's going to happen. But one of the things Sean Seymour said when he was on your podcast one time, you should never go to a program because of a kid, and you should never leave a program because of a kid. Man, I wrote that down because people need to hear that. And
Yeah.
he's absolutely right. And you guys had that conversation, and it was like that
Yeah.
touched me right here and right here.
Yeah.
And that's the serene part of it. Like, yeah, man, like there is definitely that level of understanding I think that you need.
What give me I love this kind of stuff. Give me the four stages again. Eager,
Eager,
intoxicated,
intoxicated, sober, and serene.
serene. I like that. It's interesting. I think the world of Steve Magnus, and I know his podcast, they do a great job. Highly recommend. If you like listening to podcasts, uh, go find his. It's better than this one. It's different than this one, but he does a great job. I would highly recommend you go find that podcast. It's interesting in sales, we kind of have a similar, like there's four stages, and it's kind of like like when you first start working in sales, I can never remember it. You're cognizant about being dumb. Like when you come into a job, I don't know anything about the product. I don't know any customer, anything. Then you go through the stages and you learn the product and stuff like that. Well, so you become consciously competent. That's what it is. Consciously incompetent, consciously competent, and that's a real danger zone for salespeople because we then tell Coach Garber, well, Coach Garber, just shut up. I don't need to actually hear anything. I'm the expert here. I can tell you what hurdles, pit, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And, coach was like, man, this guy's not listening to me at all. Right. And then you become consciously like that's the gold zone is become consciously like, okay, unconsciously competent. That's right. That's what it is. And you then realize like, oh, I do know it all. I've been here 20, like for me, I've been here 20 years. I certainly don't know it all, but I've been doing this for 20 years. I
Right.
know a lot when it comes to equipment for track and field and coaches. Right. But I'm smart enough to know, well, I don't necessarily know what Coach Garber is going through.
Sure.
And by the way, I don't think I'm perfect and we're perfect. So there certainly is maybe situations out there that we don't have an answer for. So we're not the right person for you. So I can be a bad salesperson and just forget that and say, no, 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 let me cram it out there. You just buy this and you'll be fine. Or I can actually ask questions, shut up, and listen and
Sure.
find out, like, oh, yeah, you know what? You were thinking this might be the solution. Let me show you something else that might work for you. Oh, none of this will work for you. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm just not the right. We're not the right manufacturer for you, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Because if I can be that way, then you'll come back to me for the next time. But if I
Yeah.
sell you something that doesn't work, it's like, well, I'll never hear from you again. You still go buy track equipment, by the way, but you ain't gonna call me. So I
Sure.
love these stages, like these things about stages, because it helps you, especially as a young person, I think, to understand that where you are in your first 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 years of coaching, you shouldn't be. When you look back on year 30, I hope this is always this is a little insider podcast secret and just conversation secret. When I talk to a coach who's been coaching for any length of time, 10 plus years, whatever, I'll ask him some form of question of like, do you ever look back at your first year and be like, oh man, whenever I see those kids, I just apologize. I didn't know what I was doing. If they don't, if they're like, oh no, I was doing good in first year, it's like, first of all,
No
it's hard to believe.
self-awareness.
No self-awareness. First of all, it's hard to believe. Exactly. Second of
Yeah.
all, that means you have not developed, you haven't gotten better in these 10, 20, whatever the years are. Well, that's not a good look either, buddy. Like
Yeah.
you should be like, oh man, I thought I knew what I was doing year one, but golly, looking back now, I was doing some stupid stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
good. You grew, you developed. I love that. So speaking of that, Mike, in the coaching side of things, what have you done over these past, I'm just going to round up to 20. And you've been coaching for more than 20. You've been at Glenwood for 19, right? Is what I'm
I've
hearing.
been I've been doing like the assistant coach gig for a really long time.
Yeah.
As a paid assistant, it was like 16 years ago, 17 years ago was when I was a paid assistant at Glenwood. So Jay Rogers, which was the guy whenever I was a senior,
Yeah.
he took over. He was the stats guy, the banker
Right,
guy.
right,
Like
right. The
I
bank guy.
became his
Yeah.
assistant. So it kind of came full circle that
Oh,
I came
wow.
back and I was
Yeah.
his assistant for three
Yeah.
years. And then he retired. And then I took
Yeah.
over. And it was like, okay, time to figure out what I've all put together, what I've learned from everyone,
Yeah.
even as being his assistant
Yeah.
and what it is that I need to do to be able to be better for these kids. And I will tell you with 100% certainty, if I could go back and tell myself what I know now back then, oh man, like the teams we had would have been so much better. I would have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am 100% guaranteed that today me is so much different than 15 years ago me.
I'm actually going to pause my one question and actually ask this because that made me think about something as you went from an assistant to a head. Again, you have perspective. You're now able to have some self-awareness. And as we use Magnus's, 4 stages here, you realize you said, oh, I can definitely see my first couple of years. I was in that eager stage, right? And then I
Yep,
had to get,
100%.
and then you said when I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, joined you.
Caleb.
You're like, yeah, Caleb. It's like, oh, I was in the intoxicated state. Like did you thinking back when you became from the assistant to the head, 'cause even though you're coaching the same sport, it's different.
Yeah.
It is different being a head coach, whether you're high school or college. It is different. Do you I don't know the answer to this. I'm not leading you here. I'm just wondering, do you recognize yourself? Did you go back to some eager tendencies when you became a head coach? Like, oh,
Totally.
I gotta prove my now I'm the head coach. I gotta prove myself,
Totally.
and almost had
Totally.
to kind of go through those things. Not like fall back all the way, like 100% a year, but like, ooh, I went back to 30% eager, and I had to go through being intoxicated. And so, did you find yourself going through those stages?
Yeah. So 2009 to 2012, I was the assistant and I was super eager. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know. I needed to know the names of the individuals we were competing against. I'd always paid attention. Mike Johnson was still the head coach. The reason I came in as the assistant is because Mike Johnson retired. Jay took the head job. I took the assistant job. So in that time frame, as soon as Mike retired, it was like, here's an opening. Here's a time to get back into it. I know Jay. I know the program. It's time to get into it. Super eager. And so for those 3 years, it was like eager, eager, eager. I was very much into that thing. Total novice, limited experience, didn't know much, thought he knew some, but was very eager to learn. And then when Jay retired and I took over, it didn't leave. I mean, I wasn't to the intoxication point yet because there was still so much that I needed to learn, and I
Mhm.
was still trying to. And then, I had a an assistant coach, Tracy Dow, who is the owner of one of our local running companies, and she did it for a couple years, and then she left, and I had another young lady that was elementary school teacher, and then she left because she was starting a family, and then again I was by myself, and I was all eager in that time frame because there was no consistency. There was me
Mm,
being a coach. I had an assistant, and then I had an assistant that was different, and then I did it by myself, and there was so much inconsistency that I did not really get a strong foothold. It's kind of like running in sand, right? Like you're just kind of like always trying to catch up. You're always trying to learn things. But I didn't have the knowledge or the wherewithal to be intoxicated. It just wasn't there. And then as soon as Caleb came in and we had a really talented group of freshman boys come in, and it was like, there's something here in the future. And to serve them appropriately, I need to do all the things all the time and be a sponge on everything. And that's where the intoxicated came in. And I can
yeah.
remember he and
That
I
sounds
mean,
intoxicating. When you said that, like, oh, I need to be I can relate to this in different aspects from my coaching to even my private sector life now. Even through in between those two, I was a professional poker player. Same thing. When you said I want to be a sponge and learn everything, like it gave me a little I'm gonna say ick, and I don't know if that's the right word. Not
sure.
ick like judgment, but ick like, oh, I remember doing that. And now that I look back, that wasn't healthy.
No,
That's
it
not
wasn't.
actually a good thing. You would think, right? When someone comes like, I just want to learn it all, and you're like, oh man, this guy's so eager. It's like, ooh, you have an ego that thinks that you can learn it all. And in
Right.
reality is you're going to still make mistakes. But my
Yep.
my my mentor, in fact, our number one episode ever, going into the Hall of Fame in December at USDFCA, Boo Schexnayder, I love the guy.
Yeah.
And today he still makes mistakes.
Yeah.
He doesn't know it all. So when you said that, it literally was like, oh, it was like that's what it was. Ick for me. Like it was judging me like, oh
Yeah.
man, I've been there. I've been trying to read everything and you
Yep.
said something that really hit me earlier when you talked about doing that, and then you're like, oh, but I lack discernment of like, okay, how do I put that into application? And,
Right.
and I struggled with that in coaching, yeah, coaching, but definitely in the private sector of like, oh man, I would read all these business books, and as soon as I got done with one, boom, I'd be on the next one, boom, I'd be on the next podcast listening
Right.
to this, and I can't remember where it was, but somewhere I learned about like you got to slow down and you got to okay, what you learn from this book or this podcast, go put it into application and learn about it. Did it work? Is it the right place? How do you? And now go learn something else. And it's like if you just are continual, um, not continual learner, because I agree you should, whether you're a teacher or coach or not, you should be a continual learner.
Yeah.
But if you're an over consumer, maybe that's what it is, and not an applier, you're not using discernment to apply those things to actually you're not actually learning, you're copying. I think at that point. So
Yeah.
you said that earlier and I want to make sure I point out because I was like, ooh, that hit me a
Yeah.
lot
And
there.
I think that's such a big part of it too. Like Mike Smith from NAU is like one of the
Hmm.
guys that I have on a pedestal in a lot of different ways. I've never met him. He probably doesn't even know that I exist. But like when him and Shannon Thompson took NAU to the level that it became, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, um, it was like I need to do what he's doing. And I didn't understand it enough to be able to do it. I didn't understand how he did what he did after having listened to him and read what he's done and the way he coaches and the way he speaks. It's so intricate to his personality that I would never be able to do what he needs to do. I don't need to be the next Mike Smith. I need to be the
Right.
first Mike Garber and stop trying to do what somebody else does because that is not it's not good. It's not healthy. And he is his own person. The reason he is who he is because of his experiences and
That's
the
right.
walk that he's had.
That's
And so
right.
I think when Caleb left and became the strength and conditioning coach for Glenwood High School, he was no longer my assistant because they wouldn't let him do both. And Lindsay Rogers, who is now Lindsay Cook, it is Jay Rogers' daughter. She's my assistant
Oh,
coach, and we have been together now for 4 years. She's my assistant in cross country and in track. And I remember her whenever I was in high school, she was about this tall.
yeah.
And at our pasta parties, she was like 5 or something like that. And just like she was a little kid whenever I was in high school. And then it comes back around. She moved into the area. She ran at University of Wisconsin Parkside. She stayed up there and taught for a little bit. She came back in town. She now works in the school district. And it was like things fall into place too well for it to be a coincidence. And she's now a close friend. We talk all the time about stuff. She's the female side of this team that I needed for a long time. Um, in 2023, our girls team went completely undefeated for an entire season and won a state championship, ran NXR, and we're all region fastest team in school history up until this year. We're faster now than we were then. Uh, there's a lot of positive things that have happened to us as a team, but so much of it starts with a lot of what she is doing and the way that she
Yeah.
helps me understand certain things that I missed out on before.
That's cool.
And I give her a ton of credit. And again, if it wasn't for Jay, if it wasn't for
Yeah, yeah.
Reed, if it wasn't for Mike Johnson, if it wasn't for those people, I would never be back in this position. And
Right.
even now, like I try to give them all the positives because I think that's where it's at for me
I
is
love that.
those names.
All right, I got about 15 minutes. So I want to make sure I hit the. So I want to go back to the question I put on pause because you're just throwing out so much good stuff here. So through the 20 years, uh, I'm a big coach and education guy, and coach and education to me is two things. There's formal and informal. Formal is our USATF level ones, level twos, USTFCA, Altus, things like that. Even like the clinic, we have a great clinic here in Illinois every year with great speakers. I consider that formal because you're sitting down listening to
Sure.
someone, things like that. Informal is peer to peer. I'm talking to a coach. I call Mike Smith up. I'm like, hey man, how in the world do you make 13-minute 5K guys out of 16-minute 5K guys all the time or whatever? What have you done? What has been most impactful for you over these 20 years, coaching education wise?
Early on, it was the informal stuff. And again, I'm going to drop names because for me, that story is my story. So Mike Garcia at Lanphier,
Mm,
one of the coaching greats. He was one of those
yep.
guys that started coaching at a program that had some really strong people in the past. Lee Halberg took the Lanphier boys and girls teams and just created something very special. And what Mike has done over the years is he's had some kids that have not had socioeconomically the same opportunities as other people. And he's buying shoes for people on his team. And he's making an impact to these kids and he's providing things to them that may not get otherwise. And a guy like him deserves so much credit for Central Illinois coaching, not even in Central Illinois, like running or that specifically.
Right.
Like, as a person, strive to be like Mike Garcia because he's one of those guys I think that's super important. Billy Owens is another guy. He coaches at Rochester. I've known him for years. I knew him as an athlete. And he is one of those people who is genuinely happy to see you. You can see some people that fake it and they're like, oh, hey, what's going on? Nice to see you. Shake your hand. And he's one of those people who is like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how's it going? And he wants to know what's happening. A guy named Breck Van Bever. Breck teaches and coaches at Jacksonville High School. Breck has become a very close friend of mine. And I've had some struggles on the personal side when it comes to coaching and things like that. And he is a person who will genuinely say, if you need somebody to talk to, let me know. Give me a call. Let's
That's
talk. We
awesome.
went to dinner this summer. His wife and he and my wife and I went and met at a place and spent 2 hours together just talking about stuff. And we made the rule no
Oh.
talking about running. We had to make a note
Oof.
talking about like
Did,
it
did
was
you
easy
were you
because
successful?
we were successful. Maybe a little
Wow.
bit. Maybe we broke the rule once.
Yeah, you
But for
broke
the
the
most
rule.
part,
Okay.
like those are the kind of things that like guys like him, those guys are such an important part of it because I can bounce stuff off them.
Right.
Chris Quick, who's up in Palatine, and I remember going to distance night in Palatine as a track meet,
Yep.
and he was super like congratulatory and very like handshaking and hey, you guys have such a great program. And he was like bigging me up, and I'm going, you're Chris Quick, like I don't know deserve this. Like it was imposter syndrome. I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Like I appreciate everything you're saying, but I'm nobody. Like I'm just me. And but it was so. And since then we went to ITCA, and I received an award 2 years ago, and he was there, and we spent the evening together and talked and chatted. And Joe Erb from Winnebago, who again is one of my favorite people in coaching. Like Joe's one of those guys that I just love as a person, and he's on the list with some of those other guys that I just appreciate. And you spend the night talking to these guys. It's so informal, but it's also so important to me that you
Hmm.
have that level. And so that was like the informal side of it, right? Like Travis Shepard and Jimmy Centella and guys like that from up north. They're more probably on the formal side of it. I went to Boulder Running Clinic for the first time
Oh
this
yeah.
in January, and it was transformative. I don't know if there's another way to say it.
Yeah.
I don't know Jay Johnson personally.
Oh, he's
We
a good dude.
he like we've communicated through DMs, and I saw him, but he's running a clinic, so he's busy and he's this way and that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Um, but I appreciate what he does because it created the platform for me to meet people uh, that are on the different side of the planet from me, different side of the United States for sure, but certainly different
Yeah.
side of the planet. Guys like Sean O'Day at Cheyenne Mountain in
Hmm.
Colorado. Sean and I have hit it off, and like he's one of those guys like I trust. I look forward to seeing when we go out there again. I saw him at Heartland this summer. Eric Detman, who is the coach of Lincoln, Oregon
Hmm.
high school, and like this summer I called him and I was just like I texted him first because I got his number at Heartland. I'm like, hey, I got some stuff going on. I need to bounce some ideas off you. Are you cool if we have a conversation? He's like, absolutely. We talked for 30 minutes and it felt like 5 seconds. It felt like a guy I've known for years. And I would
Wow.
not know, and yes, that's informal, I think, but I think it's also very formal to me because
Yeah.
without Boulder, without that clinic, I wouldn't have had contact with those guys.
Right.
Dr. Jeff
Right.
Messer is another one of those guys that
That's why I think that's so important because I used to think the formal was more important than the informal, and I had a high opinion of informal, but now I'm starting to realize that it may be actually much more equal to 50-50. Because what you just talked about, some of these formal, so when you go to a clinic, a Boulder running clinic, an ITCA, or take a level 1, level 2, whatever,
Mhm.
things like that, certainly you're getting educated. That's highly important. But the people that you're meeting,
Yeah,
that is what is gonna. It's been my experience too. That Bush Exner is my mentor because I went to level 2. Right.
sure.
I don't know that I would have ever really gotten to know him as well as I do now if I wouldn't have done that. The people that you meet are who affects your career, which affects your kids and the future kids that you're going to coach. So I think that's really important. Have you done any of the level 1s, level 2s, anything
I
like that?
haven't. It's
Yeah.
one of those things like I want to get to, but like I said,
Yeah. I
during the fall, my time is
yeah. Yeah.
so narrow. The same thing in the spring. Like I have winter, and winter for me is like, and my wife hates that I say this. It's like 3 weeks long because by the time cross country is over, where our award ceremony is 2 weeks later, then it's
Hmm.
Thanksgiving, and I already have kids talking about training plans in the middle of December because our
Right.
indoor season starts in February, and
Hmm.
it's quick. She understands it. For the long time, I think my wife was very apprehensive or frustrated with this path. Um, but I mean, it's the only life that we've
Yeah.
known.
That's life,
Uh,
Yeah.
and she
I,
understands it more. And now my son is in seventh grade. He just qualified for state in middle school. He's only the
I,
two guys that went from Glenwood. There's a picture of him that I posted on my Twitter of him. One of the Mile Split Illinois guys had a picture at the finish line, and it's Weston, my son, sprinting and get across the finish line. It's in 3 pictures, and you can see his strain on his face. 0.07 seconds, he beat a kid from Edwardsville and qualified to go to state. And it's just like he gets it
wow.
now. I can tell you that. I
Yeah.
mean, she's louder than I am. She's crazy when it comes to the meets because she's heard it from me for so long, but she gets it now. She
That's
understands running
awesome.
because Weston has always wanted to do this. He's been around my teams for forever, and he's really talented. But we keep him grounded and tell him to be happy and healthy and just have fun.
I love that.
Mama is now a cross country mom.
All right, Mike. Besides competing on gill equipment at the outdoor state meet this year, as you look forward to the future, you get to define the future 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the line. What's got you excited there at Glenwood High School?
Oof. Um, the people, the families that I get to be around, and the conversations that I get to have uh, are generally very, very positive, very uplifting. Every once in a while, you get, there are little issues that come up, but nothing totally life changing that is going to make or break anybody's like career. But what I'm excited for is the ability to see these kids that are right now sixth, seventh, and eighth graders come up to the high school level and grow. And like I said, help people do things they never thought possible. Help be able to achieve things. There's a girl who's a junior right now. And I was talking to the middle school coach who's Ryan Staley, the guy that I saw at East Alton River, helped me get up here. And he was like, I never really saw, she was always good, but I never really saw Sophie Rentmeister, like, being that good. And I was like, you should see her now. Like, he's like,
Mm,
I see her times, but like, what's changed? I'm like, it's this. Between the ears changed. As soon as you can affect kids in a level like that, the mentality that they have, um, and you do it once and you want to do it again. And there's a future kid who never really had success or maybe believed in themselves, or maybe they had a little bit of success, but they didn't know how to move to the next level. And as soon as you help one person get to that point, you're like, I think I know how to do this now, and I think I can do it again. And it
yeah.
doesn't have to do about winning a state championship. It doesn't have to do with winning a regional or a sectional or even winning a race. There are kids on my team right now, and I know I'm going to have them in the future that are seeing running in a light that is different than they've ever seen it before. And if we can keep doing that, and I can keep doing that, and I keep loving it and having fun, which I don't think is going to change, I'm going to be here forever.
Yeah, I love that, man. Hey, one of the things that you said several times as we wrap up here today is about, helping kids see things that they can't see themselves. And to me, that is, regardless of what level you're on, you're coaching 5-year-olds or you're coaching masters, everything in between. That is the superpower of a coach, the ability to see something in someone else before they can see it in themselves. A lot of us as coaches and former coaches had that happen to us. We saw Coach Coach Johnson, right, from high
Coach
school school that saw it in you first before you could see it. And that has it's expounded into an amazing career. Now you get to do that with other young people. So everybody out there listening, that's your superhero. The track coach is a superhero because you see things in other people before they can see it themselves. And I'm grateful for our high school coaches and all of our track and field coaches that do that. Mike, man, thank you so much, man, for your time. The most valuable thing you can give me is your time. And so to spend 2 hours, I know you got practice going on. You guys are, regionals and districts, and Detweiler is staring down in the face. And by the way, you get to take one big breath, and then indoor season is going to start on you. So just so grateful for you being here today, man. Really enamored with your story, man. I love the ability to have such a big person in your life that affected you, and that person was a track coach. I love that. And now you stand on his shoulders to go do that for other people, and there's going to be people that are be standing on your shoulders to continue that legacy, that coaching tree, if you will. And your story, certainly you've had a lot of success with what you've coached and things like that, but your story is certainly one of network, people, family. What are other human beings doing that affect your life, and you're affecting their life? And I think that is really at the essence of coaching, man. So I'm just so proud of that, proud of you, proud of the kids that you coach. I know Coach John Johnson's proud of you. It's just awesome to hear your story. So I'm really thankful that you would join us today here on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks guys for being here. Coming up, I can't remember when this is actually going to publish. I think this is maybe December. We'll see when you're actually listening to this. But we're in transition. We've got a new studio coming, my new office, all that kind of good stuff. And season 7 starts whatever the first Monday in January is. Absolutely, just like I'm sure Mike could not. He said he was going to be there forever, so maybe he could. He knew he was going to be here 19 years at Glenwood, and now he's going to be there forever. So he's not passing away. Sorry, whoever wants to be head coach at Glenwood, it's not happening. He's going to be there forever. Soon. I can't believe that I am facing season 7 squarely in the eyes for the podcast. I'm super excited to have more amazing human beings that choose to be track coaches just like Mike here. So as long as you keep listening, I'll keep recording and having hopefully just fun conversations like today. So thanks again for being here. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.